Hello, my name is Eric Reynolds. I'm the associate publisher at Fantagraphics Books, and it's my pleasure today to talk to Katie Skelly about her new book, Heaven, which is coming out in July from Fantagraphics. It's her first new graphic novel since Maids, which came out, I think, about 4 years ago. Um, and I'll let Katie kind of explain it, but it's basically a kind of supernatural horror book about four young women who investigate a mysterious strip club out in the desert. Katie, it's good to see you as always.
Thank you, Eric. You too. It's good to be back talking about a new book again, finally.
Yeah,
The last one was Maids, and that was 2020. So it's actually
2020.
been about 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
since. So yeah, this one, sometimes you have a story that kind of like falls out of you, and that's what Maids was. And then sometimes you get an idea for an atmosphere that you really want to create, and then it's a little bit more difficult putting that story together once you have the atmosphere. But once you nail the atmosphere, it's also very satisfying. And that was heaven for me. So this story, it kind of started as like a little germ of an idea because I saw a tweet back when it was still Twitter that said that The Weeknd is music for haunted strip clubs. And I'm a really big fan of The Weeknd. And so that just kind of stayed in my brain for a while. And I thought that could be something that would be really interesting and worth exploring. And so I started writing and fiddling around with this idea. And in the beginning, I thought I was really going to move into something that felt like Sin City by Frank Miller, which I'm a really big fan of. And so
Really?
it was, yeah, I love Sin City. I love the language of it. I thought it was going to be something that was going to come out a little bit more hard boiled, and it did kind of start in that direction. But as time was going on, and I was writing this whole other storyline just jumped out about a girl who was in high school who had recently turned 18, who tries to actually work at this haunted strip club. So it's not something that's just in the background anymore. Now it's kind of like it's in play in the story in a different way. So I just had these two worlds that were inconceivable to each other, like a Catholic high school and a haunted strip club. And I just really wanted to challenge myself to find ways to have those things cross over. And, I think it works sort of allegorically as, like a coming into adulthood sort of story.
Mhm.
Because again, like, you're in your sort of theory world of school and how things should be, especially in Catholic school. And then all of a sudden you're in the world, and those not only do those rules not apply, you'll watch them not apply and have to kind of turn a blind eye to it. So it was really trying to mesh these two things together and also try to figure out why these were coming up in a story for me at all. Like, how did these two elements come together? I really enjoyed exploring all of that.
Did you go to Catholic school?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about moving to the West Coast because I feel like this book maybe was influenced a little bit by that. I can't remember if you started it before you moved to California, but
No,
it
this
certainly
is
feels like it did.
This is the first one I did in California. I
Okay.
remember because we were still living in East Hollywood at the time, and I didn't have a proper drawing table, but I was like, I'm gonna make this work. And I had like this little kind of half thing, and I was just like working at the kitchen table, like, no, this has to get back on track. Like we have to do this. But yeah, I think just having the sort of space, like I feel like the minimalists, like the sculptors, could only be in California because there's more space here. Like in that way, it just felt like my mind had a lot more room to wander. And I didn't feel like such a time crunch. I didn't feel like things were just on top of me. So yeah, the story is a little bit more airy, I think, in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Certainly compared to living in New York. Um, so I'm curious to know more about what it was like to go to Catholic school because high school's like so can be so fraught under any circumstances, and then like Catholic school just seems to add this extra layer of fraughtness to it. Um,
hmm
I mean, was that an okay experience for you?
Um,
Mm.
I live to tell a tale. I'm I'm doing
Yeah.
great. Uh, the weird thing about all of it was, I was going to school and, we'd have mass at school and then I'd be at mass every Sunday or Saturday night, and starting to like incorporate, sexual education into that in high school was extremely fraught because there's basically no acceptable way to do anything in Catholicism, especially sex. So all of that just felt very like raw and strange to me. And like everything about it was just kind of this aberration unto God. And the wild thing was, I was doing all that during the week, and then on the weekends, I was working at my dad's newsstand and I was selling cigarettes, I was selling booze, I was selling skin rags, I was selling any number of like sinful things, like as a 13, 14-year-old by myself or whatever.
Now, your
And
father was the one who sent you to Catholic school, presumably. So, how,
mhm.
like, well, that's kind of a how did he reconcile that?
I don't know. That's a big question mark. But to me, that friction was just like I had this weird feeling in the back of my mind, like this is going to be a big part of the rest of my life. Like I don't think that this gets resolved now. I don't know that it ever gets resolved because ultimately, it's these two sort of forces of capital versus like your religious morality, and those things cannot be reconciled. They're both ideologically just so opposed and it can't
Yeah,
happen. So yeah, it was really just and then just, being young and feeling like vulnerable and, being in front of men and like selling them adult things as a child. It felt like I was growing up really fast in this way. And
yeah.
I'll still have kind of like recall memory of it, like when I'm at a show selling something and I'm like, ah, this is going good. Like, yeah, I'm
Were you the
counting my
type I
money.
mean, I feel like a lot of teenagers, I mean, I have a teenager, and I feel like a lot of teenagers I know, like, kind of fall into one of the two categories. Like, they either want to grow up too fast or they don't. And like, where did you want to grow up that fast like that, or was it sort of imposed on you? You felt like,
I felt like it was imposed, but then once that spark happened, I was ready to go. And I
Mhm.
remember standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance in my senior year of high school, and I was just like, none of this matters. This year doesn't matter. This isn't real. Like my life isn't now. So I knew like once I got to school and after that, that was when my actual life was going to start, which is a very strange way to approach youth or life in general. Like, this time period is just going to be a black hole. It's strange.
I don't
And
think that's too unusual in its own, like everybody's a little bit different, but I think a lot of people like, graduating high school is kind of they kind of view it that I think I did, it's like, okay, here's where life really starts, right?
mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
huh.
yeah.
It's been 10 years, I think. You and I just kind of talked about this a little bit recently. It's been 10 years since you got the Emerging Cartoonist Award at CXC. And in a way that seems like a long time, but in a way it kind of doesn't, because to me you're just like you've emerged. You're not emerging. You're a fully fledged, graphic novelist. And um, how did you feel when you won that award? And like, looking back on it, how do you feel now, like relative to where you are or where you thought you might be in 10 years? I'm curious to just hear a perspective on that a little bit.
I when I got the award, well, first of all, that was really the first comic show that ever flew me out. I was a guest, I got a free hotel room, I got a free table, and I just thought this is it. Like you can't do any better than this. How would you? Why would you even want to, And then I got that award and I'm very bad at like kind of being put on the spot. I have this like defense mechanism where everything just kind of slows down for me. And I know that Frank Santoro took a video of it, which is very nice. But I'm like, if I watch it, I'm just like, who is that? Like, I'm just fully dissociated, like, not there. But looking back, it was really exciting. And at the time, I didn't know what to emerge further would even mean. Because I'm like,
Mhm.
I got attention and I got a big check. What, what else is there? And just keeping going to me feels like really the ultimate victory. And staying as true to my vision feels very good to me. Like I can look back and really say like, I never compromised what I was doing to fit into a certain thing. I just kind of always did my thing and hoped other people would keep up, and that felt very good. And I think as time has gone on, my goals have shifted. I don't feel as I need to take over the world. I need to, do the best comic of all time. I need to win hearts and minds. I just feel very like if I can just stay true to this thing that came to me, that's what the victory is. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm very happy. I'm very proud. And it still feels like it's not quite real, but
I
maybe
think
it,
that's
it
a
just might never.
yeah, no, I think that's a super healthy attitude. I mean, in some ways, I kind of feel the same way. Like I'm just sort of grateful to do what we do and happy, that just to be able to continue doing it uh,
Hmm.
is really kind of its own reward. Um, what else? So, Maids, we're going to be reprinting Maids at the same time as Heaven comes out, and um, I think Maids was your first mostly nonfiction work. I mean, I know it's fictionalized, but it's based on a true story.
Hmm.
Um, how does that, do you feel like you're mostly interested in doing your own fiction moving forward? What was that? It's you described that experience as basically being a pretty easy one, like it just kind of flowed out of you.
Yeah.
Do you think you
Yeah.
can do more nonfiction?
Um, it would have to be the right story, of course. With Maids, it was, it just felt so aligned with what I was feeling at that time, which was I'm institutionalized and I never want to work again. I don't, the rest of my life, I just see work and it's grim. And, that was how all of that came together. But with Maids and with Heaven, just personally, those stories were very much about looking back and sort of mining difficult times to try to maybe understand them a little bit better or tease them out and understand what possibilities could be there. But the way that I write now, I really feel like I have the past behind me after Heaven. And I feel like now I want to speculate about what's coming
Hmm.
or sort of tease out like more human relationships than, just atmosphere or like big concepts of like vampire or, plucking somebody's eyeballs out. I think there's more sort of interpersonal stuff that I'm working with right now.
So
But mhm.
So for anyone who hasn't, read it yet, like give me the quick elevator pitch on Maids and then tell me how you stumbled across the source material for it.
Maids is based on the 1933. I don't have the book in front of me. It's either 1927 or 1933. It's based on the murders of the Lancelot family by two sisters, the Papin sisters, Leah and Michelle. They kill the mother and daughter of the family that they work for in an extremely brutal and ritualized way, and it confounded France and beyond since it happened.
And
And
how did
me,
you
me as well. I'm
and
very
how did you
confounded by it.
discover the
I
story?
found it through Isabelle Huppert, the French actress.
Uh-huh.
I believe she did the Jean Genet version. I believe she was in that, and I saw her. I saw an interview with her speaking about that, and I knew the case also by this writer, Alyssa Bennett, who does a zine all about female sort of bad behavior throughout the ages, and this is like the ultimate example of bad behavior. So I knew about it from her, and then Isabelle Huppert, and then I, read Jean Genet, The Maids, and just I looked for any sort of interpretation of the story because there really have been a lot. And yeah, that was kind of how it came across to me. But it was something that it had been rattling around for quite a long time. I knew there was something there. I just knew visually this is something that I can really make sing with the uniforms, and then the
Yeah.
actual killing itself presents this really unique challenge. So yeah,
It
yeah,
is a
it was
like
the
totally,
perfect.
yeah, it's a totally Skelly-esque. uh, milieu. So, is there anything else you would like to talk about heaven? Anything? Like, I'm curious whether. So, every cartoonist I think I've ever met has a different process for doing their comics. Some have a different process, from book to book. Um, how was the just kind of mechanics of putting this book together compared to other books?
Mm. I was, the first couple issues, those I made right when I moved to California, I thought, maybe I'll play around with a different type of pen or a different type of style. And I did. I was messing with microns a little bit at the beginning there, and I was like, this just isn't it's not hitting the way that I want it to hit, and I have to go back to the flare pen. And so the rest of the book is with the flare pen. And then, as I was working on that, I began working on some other illustration work, and I was using a brush pen, and I was liking that. And I was like, oh my God, do I have to go and, redo everything and do it in brush pen to make it like kind of up to my standard, or the new standard I was like creating for myself. So but I was like, you know what? Let this be maybe the last time I work with the flare. Like this is like the flare pen can go to heaven. I this can be like the end of a certain past and the beginning for some new tools and some new methods. But yeah, and obviously I think the way that I was working was just not sustainable again, just because my reality shifted so much, my energy changed so much. And it's now I feel a lot more like organized. I feel a lot more conventional in terms, not in terms of the stories, but just in terms of the way I'm approaching it, like
Yeah.
writing out a script and, thumbnailing every single thing and what have you.
Like you kind of have a process and aren't just making it up as you go along. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And with Heaven,
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was again doing them as mini comics. So I would go to a show and I would, sell my little issue 1 and 2 and 3. And that was always really fun. I love doing things that way. But every issue, it's like I know what I want to do. I know I want to start here and get to this point. So there's a lot of room for like improvisation in those spaces, but I want to see what it's like to try it from the other side.
hmm What else are you reading these days or watching that's kind of excited you or inspired you?
I'm still reading Frank Miller. I'm very, very into Electra Assassin. I have it on my
Ah!
on my drawing table. I just love this book so much.
I
And
had a
I
letter in Electra Assassin.
did you really?
I
What did
really
you
did.
say?
I was, I mean, mind you, I was like, 14 or something like that. But I expressed concern over over Bill Sienkiewicz's kind of increasingly psychedelic style.
Wow. You were like, I don't want to see this anymore.
It was
Signed
a little,
Eric.
yeah, it was like a little, I was probably like slightly disturbed by it.
That's cool. That's amazing. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I've just kind of gotten back into prose again. Been reading Ursula K. Le Guin and The Left Hand of Darkness and a lot of Shirley Jackson, Angela Clark, really just kind of with Angela Clark, enjoying this sort of like more flowery prose, like this sort of purpley language, and just seeing like, could that translate to a comic, and how would you do that? And I also lately I've just been really getting back into Gekiga and the 70s work by Tezuka, especially Book of Human Insects. That's like a big inspiration for where I think I'm moving towards now, just sort of something uh, that's compact and sort of paranoid and fun. So, yeah, I would say that's where I was at. But in terms of heaven, I was just like, I was so, I was coming from such a place of hurt when I got started that really, just because of the pandemic and things had changed so much, and like every single thing that I thought was normal, I woke up basically the next day and it wasn't. And going online and seeing people being like, movies are over. No one will ever make a movie again. There won't be movie theaters anymore. Just this like very like hyper doom scenario. So I don't even
Well, it's good that's
remember.
changed.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, things have really turned around since then. But
Mhm.
just it. but it's also like how much I kind of let that stuff in, because I don't really like go on social media anymore. I don't look on X, the everything app. Like I just it's too much and it's too distracting and it's a version of reality that I'm just like, I don't think that this is it. I don't think this is what's actually going on. So yeah, I think at the beginning of Heaven, I don't even know that I was reading or like I don't know, listening to anything except for like Lana Del Rey. I would find Lana Del Rey like slowed and reverbed on YouTube, and I was like, oh, it's even sadder. Like, yes. But yeah, yeah. Now, things have changed and my brain feels more willing to take on things that are a little bit more challenging and less like emotional. And maybe that's the difference between when you want to make something atmospheric versus plot driven. It's just kind of like where's your brain? Like what can your brain handle right now?
I kind of love your love of Sin City. I recently I read I'd never read Sin City until a year or two ago, and I read the first book, and I liked it. It was enjoyable, and but there's like three or four omnibuses, and I kind of petered out after the first or second one.
Sure.
Um, but but I never would have pegged that as like, something that would be up your alley. So I always like those kinds of surprises.
Once I found out that he was Irish Catholic, I was like, oh, we're swimming in the same sea. Like
Hmm.
this is my guy. And I'm not the biggest, I don't know all of his oeuvre, but I just see so much redemption in his stories. They're so driven by this like need to atone and sort of transform into something else. And I love seeing how he does that every time. And I think he has in the stories, there's always this like sort of deep down, I think there's like a reverence for women that is in there that I don't think would jump out necessarily on first read, but so many of those stories
No.
are driven by like trying to understand or protect this like mysterious form that's like always just out of reach. And I don't know, I to me it reads as like a reverent thing. I could be wrong, but
Interesting.
I'm
It's been a
interested in
while
that.
since I've read them. My feeling is like for the most part, women are mostly just objects of desire, and but but I could be not remembering the greater subtleties to the work. I don't remember it
Yeah.
as being a particularly subtle work.
Yeah, he's kind of in that like Abel Ferrara
Yeah,
zone of
right, right.
like I'm gonna desecrate this so much that you're actually gonna feel that I'm respectful by the end of it.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
I'm just fooled easily. I could be.
Fair enough. Well, I think that's kind of maybe a good stopping point. Um it's always good to see you and always good to talk to you, and I'm excited for people to read Maids. I think it's a great book, and it's been really fun to work on, and I can't wait for the world to see it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. I'm so happy to be working together again. I'm so
Yeah, me
happy
too.
Fantagraphics is going strong, despite everything being stacked against it. That's our world, I guess. We just are always at war. It's one battle after another.
It's true, but kind of like you said earlier, I mean, I'm just grateful that we can continue to do it, and that I can continue to work with folks like yourself.
Thank you, Eric. Me too.
Yeah.